Hello, welcome to Frank's vlog. This is the 5th day of January and the 5th day that I am doing this blog. I'm going to go on a little bit about biochar and the pigs. I really do want to finish with this because I've got other things I want to get to. But since I'm on the subject, I'm going to stay there for a little bit. First of all, there was the remains of a deer that had been shot and butchered, the bones, basically, that somebody just dumped them along the edge of the road down there by our lane. Not a very neighborly thing to do. And I thought I'd get down there and throw them down over the bank, but instead I brought them up and I put them in the manure pile because I knew what the pigs were going to do. When they came across, there was still a little bit of meat on those bones, and that was a party for those pigs. None of them got hurt. But by the time they were done, you couldn't find any bit of a bone or anything. They had taken it apart and run off with it and chewed it up. And they loved that, which says something about what would happen to carcasses in the terra preta domain if you had an animal like a pig. Well, anyway, that's for information. And also about pigs and their palate. What they like and what they don't like to eat. They don't eat just anything. But one of the things that's a mystery to me is they simply crave the ashes that come out of that furnace. And mixed in with those ashes, there's usually some charcoal, because the grates have holes in them and some charcoal falls down through. They eat that up too, but it's not just the charcoal, it's the ashes as well. They'll end up licking the stony ground where I dumped those ashes. And I thought, what is it that they're missing that they crave so much? I asked around, I don't know. And then other places that I burn in the field where there's ashes and charcoal, they eat that up too, but not the same as this. There's something about what goes through this household and into the ashes that they really crave and they really love it. So I wanted to tell you about that. Where did my glasses go? Over there. All right, another thing. Decentralized. One of the things that fascinates me about biochar is it's basically a decentralist industry, if you will. It's meant for in the soil. Industry tends to has centralized things into, say, a city or one big industry or one big factory, and then they do all this stuff and then they ship it all out, and in the process use all those fossil fuels. Well, you can do that with biochar, but actually it's better to just do it in every little house, every little farm, all over the place, because that's where it's going to be used. That's where the supply of the material is. It is by nature decentralist, and a lot of the experimentation that's going on with it is also decentralist. I think it's a quandary that industry and government is in, how to deal with the fact that the only certain way to sequester carbon dioxide on any vast scale out of the atmosphere and into the soil is through biochar, and it's not something that lends itself to big industry. Decentralism in general is. I've called myself a decentralist for about 50 years now, but I see decentralization all over the place. I feed my pigs in a decentralist manner. I take shell corn, scatter it around on the ground. So they go around and they get it and they chew it and they don't fight over it. If I put it in a trough, especially if it were ground up, well, then I'd have rodents. But anyway, in a trough, well, then they're going to fight over the trough. But by throwing it around, it's decentralized feeding. Still another thing I want to mention is when you put a fire out, the stuff I've watched, the two things that they do is they'll snuff it meaning they'll choke it, they'll shut the air supply off, cover it with dirt or with tin and dirt or something like that. Just cover it, shut the air off, like a candle with one of those bells that you put over a candle and it snuffs it. That's one thing. The other thing they do is they quench it. They use a tremendous amount of water to put that fire out. And then that way it saves all the charcoal. But there's another thing you can do to put a fire out, and that's rake it apart. And people do that automatically, but I haven't seen it done as a technique to, when, okay, the fire's burned hot enough, now I want it to go to charcoal, that instead of pushing the fire together, which you do when you want something to really burn up completely, you then rake it apart. Well, if you do that, you're decentralizing your charcoal. You're spreading it out on the soil, of course, where it ultimately is going to go. I think that needs to be thought about. Slash and burn has always had a terrible name, slash and burn. What worse thing could you do to, say, the Amazon? And I know what they mean by that, but I think there's more to slash and burn than the modern thinkers completely understand, I think. I've been around it a little. I haven't actually participated in it, but I've been there where it's been done or where it's being done. And I don't know it the way I should, but I'm not too sure that they would push all that slash together, maybe to have big piles to get it started, but it's very possible that they would rake it apart too. What they wanted, everyone said, was they wanted the ashes because it made the soil richer. They may have also been saving quite a bit of carbon, charcoal, if they raked it apart. Now see, if you're using a plow, tractors and plows, well, you can't have sticks and logs and unburnt stuff all over the place that gets stuck in the plow, or you just couldn't drive there. But they were hoeing. They weren't farming that way. And you can step over, or you can plant your corn all around stuff that's laying there. So I think slash and burn, I hope it's being examined. Using the heat when you make charcoal or biochar. See, I'm heating this house right now with that furnace. But in that furnace, I want it to all burn up, so there's ash. My tendency is not to leave a lot of it unburned and charcoal come down through it. But you don't do that when you're making charcoal. With the indirect method, and it's, at least they talk about somehow using the heat, but they haven't found a way clearly that I've seen yet. Industry, they do to take the gases off the wood gas, ignite it, and light itself again. But the heat given off by the whole apparatus, if it would be lovely if it could be in a building and it were big enough and tight enough that the rest of that heat could also go out into the building. I've seen very little talk about that. Now, in that furnace, there's a guy. Well, let me stop for a second to show you. I did get tubs full of this stuff. I think I'll just dump this on the floor so you can see it. I'll just sweep it up. This is the wood chips that I can get. I got about 6 tubs of that, enough to certainly experiment with. That's one thing I wanted to show you. Another thing is, okay, this. I was cutting some pieces of metal, and it fell on the ground. It fell in among some real dry manure, and they were small pieces, and I couldn't pick them out. I thought I would, but I couldn't. I could have got a magnet. But I thought I scooped all that stuff together and just put it in a can, a big can like this, and I thought, well, I'll just burn it. And then I'll be able to find the metal in the ashes. So I set this can in the furnace, and it was there for probably an hour. Well, when I came back, I poured it into this can. What was left was actually not ashes, and the metal. It was biochar. I mean, it was charcoal and some ashes, and it had been sitting just like that, open inside that furnace. I guess the oxygen wasn't getting down to it. I mean, the bottom was red hot. It was plenty hot. So that was kind of an interesting unintended experiment. Another thing here, I got maybe 6 tubs full of this stuff that I can make into biochar. These are scraps from a pallet factory, and they're cut really thin. They're the ends, and I know it helps a lot if your material is all more or less the same size. I also got maybe 6 tubs full of this stuff, beautiful stuff, 2x4s. The ends cut off. Kind of hate to make that into biochar, but I think I will, knowing that softwood doesn't actually make good charcoal. But I'm going to still try it, and I'll certainly film it when I do that. It won't be tomorrow because we got a 100% chance of snow coming. All right, let's see. Is there anything else? Oh, I guess one other thing to tell you. There's a guy online. I don't have his name. I could probably find it. He's British, and he found that if he would put wood chips in cans like this, or 2 cans as long as they were the same size, and jam them together, he'd have to crimp one of them. So one would go inside the other, and put a hole in the end to let the gases go out. If I were to do that, and I probably will, and then put that inside that furnace, that will be in effect a retort. And when I pull it out, it will have charcoal in it. Doesn't make a lot of it, but he does it all winter and ends up, I think he said he has about 500 pounds of it by the end of the winter or something like that. I don't know. All right, I'm rushing a little bit, but so be it. This was the 5th day of the vlog, January 5th, 24. Bye for now.